What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now, Back to the Past. I'm Alex, and in this video, I thought, it would be timely. Suicide Squad Kill a Justice League has just released, and considering, I want to do things in the past, not necessarily the present, we are going to talk about Suicide Squad just a little, but I want to rank all of Rocksteady's games. I thought this would be fun. Basically, a little Batman ranking. Now, here's the deal. Here's the situation. This is me having not played the Arkham games in a while. What I want to do, we're actually coming up on anniversaries. Arkham Asylum turns 15 years old in August of this year, so I intend to play it. And I'm going to try to get to the other three as well after that. Origins obviously doesn't count in this list because of Rocksteady, but we are going to do at some point a ranking of all the Arkham games just on their own. And maybe not, the list might change. But at least we can go kind of in more detail. So this is a little bit old, in terms of how I remember the Arkham games from maybe 4 or 5 years ago, okay? So Rocksteady has only ever made 5 games. Not too many to choose from. I gotta say, though, number 5 is not actually, and you might think, Suicide Squad Kill a Justice League. No, it's not. Urban Chaos Riot Response. So we just did this video maybe last week, right, where I talked about this game. I don't think it's bad by any means. It's definitely, it feels dated in some way. It's nothing all that special, but and it was fun to look at. It's fun to look at kind of their beginning and to see this hard left that they took after this game, and they went to, Arkham Asylum. But for what it's worth, and I said this in that video before, I think, the actual impact of, the bullets, I do like. I had a really big problem with how the gun actually was, so, moving the reticle and stuff. It doesn't have anything that massively stands out. And, again, we talked in that video, game came out back in 2006, and, this is right around the Gears of War time, right around Resistance time, and these are very special games to me, especially Resistance. So this game doesn't do a lot to kind of stand out, but again, this is really, the story with this game to me is more about the beginning of Rocksteady versus, I guess, what the game actually is. Because what the game actually is a pretty, cookie cutter. It's a very, not generic, I guess, but you can tell the beats, and there's nothing all that special about it. So, not a terrible game, a game I just literally played for the first time last week, so that's fun, but definitely I would say the worst, quote-unquote, of any of the Rocksteady games. So that's number 5. Number 4, I am going to go with Suicide Squad Kill a Justice League. There was no way that, well, maybe leading into it, there could have been, a way it happened, but after beating it, and this is obviously the most new game, of this ranking, there's no way I could ever say that this is better than any of the Arkham games, even Arkham Origins, right? So, we talked about this on my main channel Podcast Now. I did a review. We went really deep into the success, the couple successful things that they do in this game, and then a lot of the bad stuff. I see how you can have fun. I think there is an actual legitimate hook with the combat, and I would say this. The story left me very empty inside. And again, I talked about that for a 30-minute video before, but I would say if you're just looking at certain aspects of Suicide Squad, I would put it number 5 on this list. But the combat, I do think when it clicks, it actually works rather well. And I also try to do endgame stuff with some of the community playing it online. Yeah, it actually is kind of fun. And I get it. I get why it is fun. I get that other people are enjoying it probably way more than me. But I think there is some legitimately good stuff there. So that kind of makes it rise the rankings a little bit. But in terms of everything else, the feeling that I had when going through it, I didn't have that when playing Urban Chaos, so I would say that would maybe, do a one-up on it, but I think the good of Suicide Squad kind of wins it over, okay? Number 4. Number 3, I go with Arkham Knight, but this is where it's there's no doubt in my mind these are really, really good games. Now, because of Suicide Squad, there has been a lot of almost revisionist history. And look, games can age good, games can age bad. In fact, this channel knows that better than most because this is literally what we do here. We look at games that are 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 20 years old. And you know what? I'll be honest. Many times, if we did if I literally statistically checked it and checked myself, I'd say probably 70% of the games that I played so far on this channel over the last year, they've actually been better now than what they were when they came out. There is a sense that happens, okay? I do think a lot of it is fake when it comes to Arkham Knight. I think a lot of people are kind of kissing up to it. And that's fine, because I think Arkham Knight's a good game. We'll talk about it in a second. I think it is a good game, but I think that because of Suicide Squad, and it's okay to like or not like any of these, but I feel like because of the divisive, kind of conversations that happen for Suicide Squad, people have turned their eye and started looking at Arkham Knight and saying, oh my God, look how great it was. Now, maybe they're just realizing now, better late than never. 9 years too late, but they're now realizing how good Arkham Knight was. I think there is legitimately some of that, but I also do think a lot of it is just made up. They're just looking for anything to be better than Suicide Squad, so they're doing it. With that being said, why did I spend so much time talking about that? I have always really liked Arkham Knight. It was one of the first games I covered on podcast now, 9 years, I think in June, right? 9 years ago. The channel, I believe, had just started that year, that March. So 3 months in, I played Arkham Knight, did a review, all that jazz. I always liked it. I'll always remember I did the GameStop midnight release. I remember downloading it, playing it, Scarecrow. I mean, it's such a good game. And I get it. Like, the trailers kind of mislead you, and they rely on Joker again, and the Bat Tank. Controversially, hot take, I liked the Bat Tank. It was definitely misplaced. Like, it didn't really fit, and doing a Deathstroke thing with it was definitely a choice, but I never actually hated it. I kind of embraced it it was kind of like a floaty, arcadey kind of shooting thing that I actually really liked doing. I platinumed the game, like all of this stuff. I sincerely liked it. The Arkham Knight thing was definitely a controversial thing. I was kind of, I guess, a part of that, where I was also hoping that, because I saw the articles of them saying, hey, it's a new original character, all that jazz, right? And then it wasn't. I remember not being like a vote, because the channel had like 100 subscribers, but I remember thinking about all of that during the time. That was maybe the only, weakness of this game, but the visuals still hold up to this day. It is, in my opinion, the best feeling of the Arkham games. You feel the most like Batman. You are using your gadgets. You're using, your fists, just the hand-to-hand combat. It was the free flow system truly at its best. It was the world at its best. Now, I think City had kind of more quality versus this, maybe quantity, size, and not just a lot of side stuff too. Like, it had side stuff. It had a lot of side stuff. In City, it was also a lot. It wasn't, I believe, as much, but I think it was more quality versus Night. So City, in my opinion, is a better game, but Night, especially the last time that happened, right? We went from Night to Suicide Squad, and that's quite a change, and I get it. I think that's why so many people, were so upset. I do think Night, at least from the last time that I played it, I do feel like it probably has aged well. Now, again, I definitely, maybe not this year, because next year's the 10-year anniversary, so maybe next year for the 10-year, I'll do a video, I'll play it from beginning to end, and we'll see if it's, I think it's definitely aged well. Is it better now than it was back then? That literal part, I don't know. I don't know for sure. Okay, so that is number 3. Number 2, this is where I've always separated myself from the crowd. So, I'll say this blanket statement. Arkham City is probably a better video game than Arkham Asylum. But number 2 on my list is Arkham City. And it's because of me, my personal attachment to these games. We'll talk about, my thing with Arkham Asylum in a second. But as far as City goes, it is legendary. It's really, really good. And I remember playing City and not beating it. City, Mass Effect 2 was another one that I remember getting. I had the disc. I had the case. I remember looking at it. I remember playing the beginning, the first couple hours, and whatever I was thinking as, I don't even, I think 2011, right? I don't know how old I was. I was in my, like, mid-teenage, maybe early teenage years. For whatever reason, I just ditched it. And I went back months, if not years. I think Mass Effect 2, I went back years later. I think Arkham City was a little bit less. And it's just like, what was I doing? Arkham City, as I just said, in comparison to Arkham Knight, it's big, so it does have literal quantity in terms of, the side stuff and the villains, the amount of villains in this game. And the story is bigger than, Asylum. But it also has that quality. Like, you think of the Mr. Freeze boss fight, or, I think of cutscenes with, like, Penguin and with the Iceberg Lounge. And the whole game is just, like, a collection of great memories. The ending, the reveal, the twist. It's such a well-told story. It took everything that was so good about Asylum and it made it bigger, and it didn't lose any of the quality. In fact, like I said, I think you absolutely can make the case, and I think you should make the case. City is the better game. It takes everything that Asylum did. It makes it bigger. It adds stuff, but it stays just as good, if not better, which I do believe by definition would make City the better game. So if you want to say it's actually my number one, I wouldn't fault you there. But number one in my mind, the best game they've ever made is Arkham Asylum. Let's take a couple different angles from this, right? So you go from Urban Chaos to Arkham Asylum. Now, when it came out, I didn't know that, right? Never heard of Rocksteady, and I wasn't really into like this side of gaming. Like I played, well, actually 2009, August of 2009, I got my PS3 June of 2009, and before that, I was out of it. I may have like read IGN or listened to like Podcast Beyond, but I was not knowledgeable in the slightest of any of this. I didn't know. I don't even think I knew the Uncharted games, which is, one of my favorite franchises of all time. Sly Cooper, I knew that because of like the PS2 era. So I was just getting in, and I think that is why Asylum will always hold a special part. Like, I remember seeing the review from IGN, if it was a 9 or a 9.2 or whatever it was. I remember seeing that review and thinking, oh my God, like a good Batman game. I remember everybody saying that, right? This is the first like really good Batman game. I remember we were actually going to go to like a concert at an amusement park, and we stopped by, I think maybe Target on the way, like earlier in the day, and I bought with my own money. I wasn't planning on it. I always saved money, but I wasn't planning on buying Asylum. Went to the store, bought it, came back that night. I downloaded it, but I didn't play it. Internet and how long things took back then, and still maybe take for some people now. And then I played it, the days later. I remember listening on a CD player to like Green Day and stuff while doing the challenge maps, getting like the highest combos and I would listen, with a headphone and listening to their album on my CD player. I just have so many memories, and those are kind of like outskirt memories. Then there's the game itself. It'll always be legendary to me. Like every cutscene, Scarecrow, and the PS3 or the console itself, I guess, whichever console you're playing as. The trick of like it's been glitched. I've told this story before here and there. My hand, like I was reaching to turn off my PS3 because again, like I had the thing for 2 months. I was 13. I just got it. I didn't know how these things worked, and it did the glitch scene, and I thought my PS3 was broken. So I was actually kind of panicking, and I was reaching, and like it was like a fairy tale kind of thing. I was reaching to do it, and then right at the right moment, I guess, before I clicked, it kept going, right? The scene kept going. So there's just so many memories that I'll always remember. It was one of the first, like, that era of video games I played. I played Resistance. I played Prototype was really the first one I did. But I had probably played 4 to 6 PS3 games, period. And, 360 maybe. Like, I'd probably played some of the Halo games by then, like with my friend, like later Halo, right? Not Halo 1 and 2. But I probably did that. But in terms of, like, that era and my PS3, this was, like, the 5th, 6th, 7th game I ever played. And the game is just so good. The free flow, I didn't have any idea what the game even really was. I remember, like, seeing trailers and the review. Obviously, they show gameplay, but I didn't really know about, like, the Predator kind of thing, and planning things out and taking out the enemy. I remember doing that and the Joker exclusivity thing, for PlayStation. Like, all of it was just so engraved in my head. It's got to be my favorite of them because I do have, I think, the most vivid and just kind of locked in memories, right, that I'll never forget. And I think it's just a really good game. Like City's story is phenomenal, and I do think it's actually more consistent because I think Asylum, especially Joker towards the end, right, kind of takes a hard left, right? So it maybe falls apart a little bit. I think they do a really good job, though, especially, again, for, like, the first time, and it's a condensed map, and you're going through different, you're going through sections more than one time. Sometimes you have to go back to places, but I think it's just overall an excellent game, and obviously starts the franchise, right? Going from their first game, a first-person shooter, to then do the Arkham trilogy, and then back to a shooter, but not first-person third. A wild ride. Rocksteady's definitely had a wild ride. I'd controversially, but really not controversially, say I don't think they're in the greatest spot right now. I think their peak was probably like 2012, like right after City, right? Like when you're riding high and you're getting ready for night. So probably like from 2010 to like 2014, they are just at the freaking, you know what I mean? They're like legends. And then things start to take some hits with night. And like there was the PC situation with night. Like there were definitely some issues. And then now we get Suicide Squad, which is so, split 50-50. Maybe not even 50-50, but it's split. So I don't know if they're in their best era right now. I think that's kind of long past them. But definitely a developer that has a lot of memories, and I think that is what makes them so special. I think that's what makes the Arkham games so special. A lot of memories for a lot of people, and maybe to many people, the first superhero game, the first Batman game, the first good of either of those two type of games, very iconic. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on. I hope to see you all on the next one.